Wife thought he wouldn't do revenge. She was wrong. Welcome everyone to our channel. Always impactful stories, but first leave your like, subscribe to the channel, comment, and share this video with more people who like impactful stories like this one. Let's go to the story. First story, Laura. My wife of 7 years was getting ready to go out with another man. Henry, we've already had this conversation. I'm going with him. He wants me. And I want him. You can just accept it. It's worth ending the marriage for him. Laura stopped putting on makeup and looked at me. You know you won't leave me. You know that if you leave me, I will get what I want. Live with the children. And you will have to pay me alimony and child-related expenses. I will make it difficult for you to see the girls. And still you will pay for getting involved with other men, but you will get nothing in return. She touched up her makeup. I was perplexed. This was the same woman I had been dating for a year and married to for the last years. She had always been loving, respectful, and supportive. Now she seemed too much like a totally different person. It was all an act. She was skilled at acting. What would your mother think of what you are doing? He is so innocent, gullible. It was her idea. I was raised with this purpose in the marital dynamic. Woman to have influence, as we are not as strong physically as men. We need to assert our authority in other ways. My mother did the same with my father when I was little. In the end, he accepted her position, and so will you. Of course, it will be a challenge for the fragile ego the man will probably resist. But in the end, you will understand that the best solution is to simply accept Laura. She finished her makeup and fixed her hair. She was without a doubt a beautiful woman of Armenian origin, with dark skin and long, straight black hair. She had a small nose that, according to her, caused problems in her youth. However, she grew out of it, and now with Ava perfect. With her deep brown eyes giving her an exotic and sensuous look when we got married, I truly felt like I had found a treasure as I watched her. Suddenly, she slid her hands under her skirt, took off her panties, and threw them on the floor. I decided that this would be a nuisance. I want him to have access to my private parts all night. Laura, if you do that, I won't be here when you get back. I warned her. She looked at me again like I was a fool. Dear, I'm so sorry this is so hard for you. What you need to know is that I really love you. I have decided to get married because of my feelings for you, and because I recognize that you are an exceptional man and father, surpassing any other. For me, other men are just physical satisfaction. I feel the need for more than a single man can offer me. However, if you stop bothering me in this way, I promise to make it up to you when I get home. Do you really think this is some kind of incentive? The tone of his voice showed seriousness. I continued, I must warn us. Whoever wants me to do this and what he wants takes priority over the husband's desires. You should accept this. You may not agree with this, but you will accept it, just as you accept all things that cannot be changed. I will no longer be able to have direct sexual contact with you. He wants me only for himself, but I will take care of you differently. It's not as if I have any chance of that. Everything would be fine, but this is the last straw. Why don't you just leave me? If you go with him, I laugh as it were the most ridiculous sentence in the world. I told you, Henry, that no man can satisfy all my intimate needs. Besides, he only earns about nothing a year, so you could say he's just some random guy in the store. But he has a great use, and the girls he's been with say he knows how to use it. We don't need your income to keep me in the lifestyle that me and your daughters deserve. So that's how I came to notice that you never mentioned that you loved me. You just laughed. You're trying to be mean. But that's exactly what I intended. You grabbed your purse, put your ID, a lipstick, some emergency money, and headed for the front door before leaving. You came over to me and kissed Mimi my head, so she could kiss me on the cheek. But even then, I felt a little uncomfortable. Henry, I know it will be hard at first. This is not what you expected for your life, and you will have to get used to it. But you will learn to appreciate the freedom from responsibility it will bring you. In the end, you will be fine, I know. After all, you were like a soldier. Everything will work out, and now it is time for her to go. It was only 7 p.m., so I could spend my time like a soldier. I admit, I didn't talk much about my time in the army, and she never asked. I believe that was all she knew. I couldn't think of. You'll soon realize that serving in the army is much more than just being a soldier. Around 7:30, I called her mother. Although I knew more than they thought, I referred to her as Margaret, as if I was completely blind to the events of the night. I told her about my conversation with Laura. I knew her father was seriously depressed, but before all this started, I didn't realize the true extent of it. She explained the same way Laura did. Henry, I know it will be hard to accept. You just need to understand that women are the natural choice to be in charge, and we need to use every means at our disposal to gain that advantage. And in fact, contrary to what you might imagine based on the influence of popular culture, women have a much greater need for intimacy than men, and can even enjoy it for longer periods. And with higher quality, is as if we need multiple partners to satisfy different aspects of our intimate lives. I could barely contain my laughter as she expounded her theory. Is that really? So I asked, of course, just like my husband Gu, your main role is to provide financial support and care for our daughter. If you do this well, you will be rewarded with a satisfying participation in our intimate moments. Laura says she reserves herself only for one lover, but don't worry. This is only temporary and necessary to guide you in the right direction. Once you better accept your role, you will have more opportunities to satisfy us in this way. In fact, you are necessary to her because you are her husband, and social norms indicate that you are the one who is by her side. She needs you to help her stay focused and lead the family. Do you understand? Asked. Sure, Margaret. I understand perfectly. All this makes a lot of sense. I am really glad to clear up these issues, I replied with a subtly sarcastic tone. Although it seems like a sudden change, I know you will adapt quickly, and you will even be able to enjoy the role you play. She replied without noticing my ironic tone. I am confident that you are right. Please make sure the girls are in bed by 9. Sure, Henry. I am happy to respect your preferences. In this regard, we women are not reckless, and do not hesitate to call me if you have any further questions. Perhaps I can explain things more clearly than Laura. Margaret's complicity in this matter will not go unnoticed. She would not be physically harmed, but I assumed that the means by which she would suffer would be quite painful. Indeed, for her, I was fully aware of what Laura planned to do. In fact, Laura was overly gullible. She assumed that she would just go along with whatever happened day by day, and that she had deceived me. But something in her behavior indicated a change, and that was why I approached some of my comrades in arms to help me do what they did best. Alan was the most perceptive among us. He had worked with intelligence units while we were overseas, and had an almost complete knowledge of electronic surveillance and security. He had tapped our phones and bugged the car, Laura's purse and cell phone. He had many audio recordings of her conversations with her mother, friends, and lovers about what they were planning. I suspected that some of her friends were planning to do the same depending on how the attempt went. Laura David also worked in intelligence and was one of those experts in forging documents for various agents abroad. David was also one of the best hackers. Mark now held an executive position in a company that did considerable business overseas, which gave him access to the company's private jet. He could use it as he wished and had little reporting requirements. And last but not least, there were Jason, Carly, and Dennis. As the ones in the group, these guys were called fighters, but they were skilled at it. They had excellent accuracy with all types of weapons. Everyone was vigilant, and at 10 p.m. the plan was put into action. My request that the girls be in bed by 9 p.m. was part of the plan. I prepared several bags for myself, and the girls mainly containing items of personal and sentimental value. Of course, I included some clothes, but toys were the predominant part of the girls' belongings. Acquiring clothes would be easy. I loaded everything into the car and drove to my in-laws' house. For the last time, I parked in front of Margaret's house. It was dark except for the light emanating from the living room where Laura's parents were watching television. Jason informed me that the girls were at 9 o'clock and had probably already fallen asleep around 15 minutes ago. The individuals watched television until 9:30 p.m., at which point the husband made several trips to the kitchen for some drinks and snacks. But that was all for now. We are ready to go in. Just say Danny approached the house. If I hadn't known they were there, I wouldn't have even noticed they used only handguns. We didn't need automation for this particular operation. I just watched the living room with interest, watching as the boys came in and quickly overpowered Margarete and Guy. I walked toward the house slowly and entered through the front door. I heard Margarete beg, "Please, don't hurt us. They must have chosen the wrong people. We didn't do anything. Our granddaughters are sleeping in the next room. Please let us go. We won't say a word to anyone." It was only at that moment that she told me, saw him enter the room and was silent. "What is happening, Margarete?" "Don't keep us in the dark," said Henry. "What is happening here? Either let us go immediately, or Laura, silence Margarete." I had never been scolded like that, and she was visibly surprised. "Neither you nor Laura have any control over this. I recommend that you just listen to what they have to say now, please. Save your questions for last while I was talking." Dennis was meticulously tying each of them to the chairs in the dining room. These guys were professionals at this. Margarete and GY would be stuck there until someone untied them, or found a way to free themselves. "Margarete, I decided that I will not follow the future that you two tried to impose on me, as seductive as it may seem to live your life for your daughter, and transferring all the responsibility to her just doesn't seem right to me. I'm sure my sarcasm was, I obviously discovered your plan some time ago, and I took my own precautions, and considering that you allied yourself with her and encouraged her very well, that means that you will also suffer the consequences, and what would those be?" Marg interrupted sarcastically. Margarete asked her to leave her questions for later, but since you asked, I will answer now. The consequence, in my opinion, will be more painful for you. You will never see your granddaughters again. "Henry, please no, you can't do that, please," she begged. I didn't make any gesture to interrupt her. "I can, and I will," Laura replied to the young TZ. "Eventually she will find you a replacement, but that doesn't worry me." She suddenly became aggressive. She wanted to take over the contract. "We will find you. Henry, we will spare no effort for Louise. You know we have limited resources. We will do it, and you will regret it. You can try." "Margarete, but you are wrong about one thing. You have no money for what you are talking about, as well as one of the consequences of your actions. Measures were taken to avoid." "Exactly that. I had to take an unpleasant measure for you now. All your bank accounts are empty except for enough to support yourself for a month or two. This includes your investment accounts, your 400, even that little secret bank account you and Laura opened as an emergency fund. And you thought I didn't know how the hell you managed to do that. It is clear that you underestimated the resources available to me due to my military career. That is how I was able to have access to almost every penny of yours, including cash advances on all your credit cards, before you even think about following me. You will have to deal with a crushing debt load. As for Guillaume, I hope you are not planning to retire anytime soon. On the other hand, I will never have to work." He didn't say a word, and he still doesn't. He just stares at me. I watched, although part of me suspected that he was waiting for me to invite him to come with me. But the good news is that they will be together. Laura will not be able to keep the house since she doesn't work, and with the mortgages I have on it, even selling the house won't solve anything. Her credit cards have been canceled, and yours are almost at their limit. There won't be enough money to pay for my search, so she will have to move to your house, and who knows between you three. Sis, it might work. We will find one anyway. Damn it, just wait. I'm looking forward to it happening for real until I'll give you a tip to help you. Don't waste time searching inside the United States. We won't be here anymore, and don't worry about looking for Henry Hay or Lily Baston. After tonight, these people will cease to exist, at least in the documentation. None of them had anything else to say, so I went and woke the girls up. Dad yelled in unison. We grabbed their things, and I explained that we were going on a quick trip. They seemed excited, and said Mom should be there too. We'll get there, but not now. I drove to a private airport, where Mark's corporate jet was waiting for us. Jason would take care of getting I drove to a local motel where I checked in. To make things more confusing, we got on the plane and got settled in. The girls were impressed with the space available, at least compared to a commercial plane, and they were free to move around and play. Information about our new identities was available on the plane. We had a few hours of flight, and I took the opportunity to explain to the girls what had happened and that we would no longer see their mother and grandparents. We also talked about their new names and where we would live. They were sad and cried until they fell asleep. But I was convinced that they would adapt in time. They were still young. Anyway, Laura went home. After the meeting, around 11 p.m. It was actually just a casual meeting with no affection involved. We met at a bar, had a few drinks, and then went to his house. Pleasant in terms of intimacy, not only with the OAs who I initially met, we also had some friends of his from the bar, so we all had a good time, although a sore poo would have if necessary. H just needed to understand that my needs were greater than he could meet. This was not a criticism of him. No man would be able to satisfy all my needs, and it took a long time until I was fully satisfied. However, I was determined to make up for lost time. I pressed the button that opened the garage door and waited for it to open. It was no surprise to me when I found that Henry was not home. My father had a similar reaction. When my mother told me about his absences, although I hoped everything would work out, my mother was right in saying that male pride would make it difficult to fully accept the situation. Henry's absence was not because of his absence. It affected me more than I expected. However, it only reinforced how much I loved him, regardless of what he thought he would soon be back in my bed. His love for the girls would ensure he would adjust and behave appropriately internally. Imagining him returning and begging to serve me only to spend time with the girls. It was already around 1 in the morning and Henry had not returned home yet. This did not surprise me, but he remained distant. I intend to make him apologize. Perhaps I was too firm. I mean, Lori wants to have exclusivity over me, although she does not mind sharing with her friends. However, I feel that Henry's position as my husband should guarantee him something more. So when he returns, I will humbly allow him to have me. This will ease everything. I took a long shower to ensure everything was sanitized and pleasant. I didn't want it to stay in me any longer than necessary. Then I lay down on the bed and fell asleep. Immediately the next day, I tried to call my parents' house to check on the girls' well-being, but I got no answer. I called each of their cell phones, also without success. Strange. I thought he always answered worried. 20 minutes later, I went there. Their cars were in the garage and everything seemed in order. In fact, I expected them to have left since they weren't answering the phone. Or maybe they were busy in the garden when I came in through the front door. I called for them, but I barely heard an answer, which seemed strange. Laura, dear, I'm here. I ran into the living room and was surprised to find them both tied to the chairs. My God, Mom. Dad, what happened? I worked to untie them. While my mother was explaining what had happened, he took the girls and Laura. Henry took the children. What are you implying, Mom? He was the one who did this. Then he took the girls. Yes, he and some of his friends seemed to be in the military. I'm not sure. They came in. They tied us up. Henry took the girls and left. He said he was leaving the country, and that we would never see them again. This information messed with my head. I really underestimated him so much. I never thought he was capable of something like that. There must be an alternative explanation. I decided to untie my mother and asked her to release my father. Then I called Henry's cell phone. I'll sort this out, I thought. Will he come back here with my daughters, or will he regret it bitterly? Henry was waiting for a call from Laura and the phone rang. I kept the phone on and connected it to the international service just for this call. I let it ring 4 times before I answered hello. Oh, damn you. Where the hell did I hang up a few moments later? The phone rang again. No. Hang up, you bastard! I hung up again. The phone rang again this time. I spoke first. Laura, this is your last chance to speak politely. If I hang up again, it will be the last time you hear my voice. It's clear. I could almost feel your expression of concern on the other end of the line. Yes, I get it. Now, what is happening? Why were my parents tied up? And where are my daughters? Well, let me answer your questions in reverse order. First, you no longer have daughters, the ones that were once your daughters. They are here with me, where you will never see them again. Stupid nonsense. This is the last warning about language. Laura, keep your mouth shut, or I will end this right now. I kept this number open just so we could talk one last time after I hang up. This number will no longer work. So if you want answers, you need to be careful with how you express yourself. I'm being clear." Laura's tone of voice changed instantly. She probably thought she could still reach me, but at this point she needed to sound reprimanded. Of course, she was wrong, but she didn't know yet. "Yes, sorry, I'm really upset. Imagine how I felt when I found out my parents were tied up and my daughters disappeared." She wanted to argue. "Imagine how I felt when they told me that I would be forced to support my wife while she had relations with other men, or else I would not be allowed to see my daughters. None of this makes sense. If you had chosen to stay at home instead of cheating on me with 3 different men, things would have taken a different turn. I have been following your steps. I know exactly what you did, Henry. Dear. That was not my intention. I just wanted you to fight for me and show me how much you love me. I was practically begging on the other end of the line. We have been together for years. I like it when you show your affection for me. Every woman appreciates being reminded of her attractiveness. You know very well that you were wrong to think that I would accept what you tried to force on me. Henry, please forgive me. Give me back my daughters. I will do anything to get them back. Unfortunately, Laura, you have shown your true essence, and that is it. As I mentioned, your mother can try to locate us, but we live under different identities in another country. Our new documents do not even indicate that you are their mother, so there are no traces to follow." I heard her screaming my name as she ended the call and dropped the phone in the water. I turned to my daughters. "Okay, Lucy, Jeannie. What are we going to do today?" The narrative is brief and objective, seeking to entertain without much elaboration. The positive point is that I quickly present Ito and the resolution with a satisfactory revenge for all involved. I would have preferred that the father-in-law also leave, because I would have a better life with him and his granddaughters. However, I also think that he should have fought for it. This is the difference between the son-in-law and the father-in-law. Son-in-law does what is expected of a man. You already know how it is. If you liked the video, leave your like, subscribe to the channel, and share this video with other people who like stories like this one. Also watch other videos on the channel with themes that will be impactful and exciting and will leave you thoughtful. Thank you for watching the video until the end.